epilepsy, that's a disease, that's a chronic disease, which is characterized by the occurrence of spontaneous seizures with different kind of frequency. I mean, in some patients it can be a few times a year, but for other patients it can be several times a day.
There is something to avoid death, I'm sure, but I can't remember what. There are doors, doors again. I don't know who I am. I don't know where I am. I see only the ground. It's red, but all around there is darkness. I'm a child, lost in a nightmare, but I will never find the exit. I bang on doors, I scream. A door half opened and closed. Immediately, I go on screaming, help me, I don't want to die. So, all I have left is my tears.
It's a disease that's then associated with many changes in quality of life for the patients, is associated with cognitive problems, is associated with emotional problems, with depression, with many other things that follow on from this disease state. So it's not only seizures, but it's very, very much wider actually. There are many different methods, and they should be explored thoroughly if they work or not. So for me, if a diet works, fine, great. So if another mechanism or anything that helps the patients in the end is beneficial. So it's sometimes difficult to measure, but I mean, I think many methods should be common. I would say brain surgery, if that goes well, that is then a cure. These patients have no more seizures and they don't get any more seizures. In this case, yes. This is why it's so attractive for patients to say, can I go for surgery and so on.
The idea of damage is definitely always a fear because microglia can release either superoxide by the NOx activation or cytokines by more complicated transduction pathways. So cytokines can modify and kill nerve cells. There's very toxic cytokines that can lead to damage, such as TNF-alpha, and the superoxide itself can also cause damage. So it definitely is a worry that if you have uncontrolled microglial activation, it can lead to two ways that the nerve cells could die. This is why research is really important to figure out the steps involved. It's always more complicated than just turning something off or on. You want to turn off or on in the right circumstances.
And so far, what we can say is that all NOx enzymes are increased during epileptogenesis. However, we cannot say that by blocking their expression, we can develop a new therapy. We have some evidence suggesting that by stimulating one of the NOx, the NOx4, we may have something. We may reduce seizures, but that's very preliminary hypothesis. I would say no. It may be interesting to look at NOx activity as a biomarker. We need biomarker, especially when the disease is developing silently, which is a big problem, because the sooner we can act on a disease, the better it is. Yeah, I'm optimistic in terms of biomarker. I mean, that may be one example of an increase. I don't know how we will be able to measure that in human patient. Of course, that's another challenge. But they seem to be pretty reliable markers to indicate that there is some kind of inflammatory process going on, even if it's not critical for the development of the disease, but because it is expressed very early and it is a very lasting increase, that may be a good biomarker.
Okay. You're not nothing. You're something.